Welcome to the Wrestle Factor Podcast. My name is Josh. With me is my brother Jay.
What's up?
And this week we've got new SmackDown Live Tag Team Champions. What do you think of the new Tag Team Champions?
You mean the Planet's Champions?
The Planet's Champions.
Well, glad to see Daniel Bryan back.
I am too.
As always, that's great. Glad to see him getting me points once again.
Yeah, he really shot up there in the point. For not having been on TV the last 3 weeks, he really shot up there in the points. So we'll go over the updated points towards the end of the show. But I'm actually really happy, and I didn't know that I wanted these two to be champions until they were brought out. Because you look at the SmackDown Tag Team division, and it's crap.
Yes.
We've got Heavy Machinery.
The entire tag team division in WWE is crap.
Well, particularly... Oops, sorry.
But while we're on the subject, yes, SmackDown.
Particularly SmackDown, because everyone got raided and taken over to Raw. So we're left with Heavy Machinery. Who else?
The Colognes, I think.
Are they even still...
I have no clue.
Last I heard one of them was injured, and then that was it.
This is how bad the tag team division is. We can't even recall.
We can't even remember who was on it.
The Hardy Boys were...
Yes.
In the division. Not even sure what they're doing now.
Well, Jeff is injured. That's why they gave it up.
Yeah, I know. So they obviously don't have anything for Matt.
Right. Well, maybe not yet. They might get him involved in this whole Lars thing with him and Truth, but...
It's him!
It's him! Puts up his fist.
Put up your dukes. That's his new character. He's going to be an old-timey fighter type of guy.
Right. They're going to bring back the vaudevillains for that. Him and Truth. But, no, Daniel Bryan and Rowan are the new SmackDown Tag Team Champions, and like I said, I didn't know I want this until it happened, but I'm so glad that these two are the champs now, because it saves this absolutely crumbling tag team division. It was good to see Daniel Bryan back on TV.
I can't wait to see the environmentally friendly tag team belts.
Yeah,
that's going to be great.
I heard that he was actually going to introduce new tag belts.
Yeah.
Just like he did with the world title.
You could hear it during that backstage segment whenever they just won. It's like, we need to do something about these, you know. So, I'm ready to see that.
Yep. So on Raw, the show started, and then I don't remember who came out for. Roman Reigns came out to interrupt Vince McMahon, and then everyone else came out, including Daniel Bryan. Said that he had been away the last month since WrestleMania, quote, in solitude, I guess just resting or whatever, and now he's finally made his comeback. So he was on the show where they introduced the new wild card rule. We'll get onto that in a minute. And then later on SmackDown, Shane McMahon came out to crown new SmackDown Tag Champs, and he introduces Bryan and Rowan, and then the Usos come out and interrupt, say, you know, we had to fight for those. You had to fight for those even. You know what that's like.
Yeah. Which
led to Shane booking a match between the Usos and Bryan and Rowan, in which, you know...
It was a good match.
Yeah.
You can always...
The Straight Veg Society won.
you can always count on the Usos to put together a real good match.
Yeah, leave them to putting on good matches instead of doing these crappy backstage segments with Usi Hot.
Usi Hot.
My God.
When you perspire, you on fire. Or something like that.
So yeah, speaking of the new wild card rule, Vince McMahon opens up Raw. Like I said, Roman Reigns came out, and then, you know, AJ came out. Everyone's out there. He decides
he was tired of all these SmackDown people just showing up, and so he has an epiphany.
Because he's a genius.
I'm a genius. There's all this beef here.
He says that this is what he said, and I quote, 3 superstars from SmackDown can come to Raw, and 3 superstars from SmackDown can go to SmackDown. And he's like, oh, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, Raw to SmackDown, SmackDown to Raw. He said 3 people each week, which later in the show he changed it to 4. He's already changing his own rules halfway through the show.
That was kind of just... I feel like that was a little... like poke at a comedy thing, like Lars was just staring at him down.
He was like intimidating, like let me do what I want.
Well, what's Lars doing on Raw? It's like
make it 4.
Just doing whatever he wants. It started as 3, was kind of joked that it would be 4, and then now I think it's officially like a certain number of superstars can at any time be, invited to Raw or SmackDown.
Well, commentary kept putting over that it was 4 after that segment. They kept saying 4. They weren't even following their own rule the entire night. The show started with 6.
Yeah.
6 people. Twice as many as you said.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Well, from what I've heard since the rules come into play is that like I said, it's just a certain number of people.
Right, which
I think that way they can get away with if they just want like 1 or 2 this week, or if they want a whole group of people.
Right.
I don't know. It's all dumb. It's obviously something that's just been thrown in to help ratings, but
right. And whenever he first said this, admittedly, I thought this was a stupid idea, and I thought, obviously they're panicking again, and this is what he thinks is going to fix it this week, and it's not going to be followed next week. Well, they did kind of follow up with it on SmackDown, which makes me think maybe it'll keep going, but it's like there's a side to the, what's the expression or whatever, like 2 sides to every coin or something like that, double-edged sword or something, where
got 2-headed snake.
I wrote down the wildcard rule is at least an attempt to explain why superstars are and will be appearing on opposite brands. Fair enough, because they've been doing that and not really explaining why. They're supposed to be on separate brands, and they're just coming over whenever, not really saying what the deal is.
Yes.
On the other side, I don't feel like this rule will be followed very well. They're going to bend the rule that's already bending the rules. Basically,
yes.
I think everyone's in agreement with me. This is the end. This is the beginning of the end for the brand split.
Which I don't like.
I don't either, because I would be fine with it if they knew how to book people week to week, where that they are not just overbooked. Because how it was before the brand split back in 2015 and early 2016 was they would have the same people on Raw and SmackDown. But the thing is, SmackDown wasn't furthering feuds. They were just showing people that were in feuds and wrestling other people. And people that are undercard or kind of sit on the sidelines were not getting any TV time at all.
It was like the occasional undercard or midcard match, mostly recapping Raw, and usually just rematches from Raw.
SmackDown was definitely the B show, or it was,
it was Raw light.
Raw light, basically.
It was basically an easier way of getting 2 hours of wrestling,
right,
quote unquote.
So I do think the brand split should keep being a thing, because I like each show having its own set of people, and then I don't feel like it's just 5 hours of monotony. It's 3 hours of one show and 2 hours of another show.
You're not seeing the same people,
which they're starting to do that now.
Yeah.
So
and I don't like that. I almost like being able to pick one show over the other.
Right. Consistent. All of last year, SmackDown was hands down better than Raw, and has been all but maybe 1 or 2 weeks this year as well.
Yes.
And I used to think, Raw was better because it's the A show. It's where, if they have a high-profile feud, it gets showcased on Raw, not SmackDown. If Brock Lesnar's involved or something, the big money matches, it's on Raw.
Yeah.
But SmackDown has just been all over, just more interesting to me lately.
Yeah.
So, I know that this is what they do, because they had a brand split before, and then they combined the rosters, and now 2016 they had another brand split. They'll probably combine them again within the next couple years, if not sooner.
I think,
and then they'll split them again.
I think kind of like what you're saying is basically they've just come up with a way to justify what they're doing.
Right.
Instead of just not acknowledging that there are different brands and having people just jump back and forth, they're able to say, "Oh, we got this new wild card rule." That's how people can do it.
Yeah, and it just
then that way they can have different people come back and forth.
Right, and over time it'll just be more and more people will be on both shows each week. Right now it might be 4 or 5. A couple months it'll be 8 or 9, and then a dozen people, and then
whenever SmackDown moves to Fox this fall, it'll probably be non-existent.
I was gonna say I would probably bet that by October it's not going to be split roster anymore.
I mean, to be honest, by that point they'll probably be focusing more on AEW and competing with them.
Maybe, because I also know that they don't want SmackDown to be seen as the better show to Raw. I don't know why, but Vince has always just been like, SmackDown is the second show. Raw is the main show. I don't know why that is. I don't know why SmackDown's going to Fox and Raw isn't, if that's the case. Because more people will see it on Fox than on USA.
In a way, yes. I mean, you got to think about how Raw is a whole 6 years older. It's got a lot more time invested into it. I don't know. I prefer SmackDown. I like the look of it. I like the feel of it.
I like that
it's more wrestling based. It's much easier to enjoy.
I like that SmackDown can have as many segments as Raw, but they've shortened them down to be short and sweet when they need to be.
Yes. And
it flows a bit smoother.
When
your opening segment on Raw takes 20 to 30 minutes.
Yes.
The length of the average American sitcom.
Yes.
Too long.
I could have watched an episode of some random show in the entire time your first segment was going.
Especially this week.
This week they come back from commercial from the opening promo and go straight into another promo.
Right.
Which lasts like another 5 or so minutes.
So
I don't know. I feel like it always just goes back to the regular argument of it's probably easier to write a 2-hour long show every week than a 3-hour long show.
Right.
So
which I used to be against the idea of them shortening Raw to 2 hours, but lately I'm like, they really need to do it. Yeah. Okay, where do you draw the line where like the extra money you get from the third hour just doesn't matter anymore? Where do you draw the line for that?
At what point does the network just look at it and be like, yeah, this?
At what point do you like care enough about what the fans want that you're willing to take that little bit of pay cut?
I don't know.
Last I checked, WWE didn't seem to be having any problem making enough money to pay their wrestlers. Hell, there's rumors this week that some undercard wrestlers in the Revival and all of them are getting like $500,000 contracts to not even really be on TV.
Pretty much.
You have that kind of money, like what are you scared of?
Yeah. I mean, you basically got the Revival out there just being on TV, so I'm sure that whenever their contracts are up, they can just straight up leave. They don't have to try and run out any time. You got people who are, frustrated creatively.
Yeah.
That don't like being on the show and,
Which it blows my mind that with the amount of TV time that they have, that people are even in that situation.
Yeah.
You've got
plenty of people, plenty of talent that could fill 5 hours of programming every week.
And they've got over 100 wrestlers on the main roster. I think over 100, exactly. Or if not close to.
Maybe they need a bigger writing staff.
Whenever you don't need to make a promo segment go 25 minutes. You can just put some of them in some matches. It's called wrestling. Hello. Yeah. Sometimes wrestling does more for you than a promo ever could. In some instances.
If you've got good enough performers, you don't need like a story going into it. If they should be able to tell a story within a certain amount of time.
Right.
And make it interesting. I don't know. I feel like you could have you could just show an episode of NXT for that first hour of Raw and then go into a 2-hour episode of Raw and it would be more entertaining.
Yeah.
But
no, because then I would be wishing that the last 2 hours of Raw would be more like NXT, which I already do.
Then you're just gonna leave and go to the network and watch more NXT.
I would rather watch the last 3 weeks of NXT than sit through an hour of NXT and then 2 hours of Raw.
I would rather have a nosebleed seat for a takeover show than front row for Raw.
Yeah, I agree.
It's as simple as that. Whenever your developmental team is better than your main roster.
Okay, I'll one-up you with that. I would rather NXT TakeOver be held in a football stadium and get nosebleed seats for that than be front row at Raw.
I'd rather be watching on a TV in one of the hallways of that same stadium for an NXT show.
Having paid a ticket to be there.
Than to be on the ring apron for a Raw show. If I could sit on one of those big ring posts that they have, just sit right there, literally can't get any closer.
I would rather listen to an NXT show on a ham radio than be in the ring for Raw watching the action up close. Maybe not, but
Yeah,
you get the point.
Yeah, I think we need to get past this, actually.
Moving on.
The
next thing I wanted to talk about was Sami Zayn. He had a segment this week on Raw where he came out to do his usual shtick, and he finally was interrupted by Braun Strowman, of all people. Which, when he came out, I was like, really?
Yeah. I mean, do they really, like...
You know, you can have other people beat up heels, and it doesn't have to be Braun Strowman.
I'm just mostly just, like, obviously going straight back to our conversation we were just having. Why, when Braun comes out during Sami Zayn's promo, which he's barely into, Braun comes out and I'm just like, really? Like, this is what they're doing? They're just going to have Braun basically taking Sami's place of Kevin from their feud like a year or so ago.
Yeah.
It's like,
which is immediately the vibes I got.
You can do so much more, and this is what they do.
It would have made more sense to have, like, I don't know, maybe like an intellectual feud, kind of like what Daniel Bryan was doing.
Yeah.
Like when he was feuding with AJ and you know, everyone on SmackDown, it was more of like they weren't like accepting what he was saying about them, like them being hypocrites and stuff. But Braun is just a big meathead.
Sami Zayn versus Ricochet. Ricochet gives the crowd everything that they want: high flying, you know, fast action. Sami Zayn, you know, saying they don't deserve that.
Yeah,
it would be perfect.
That'd be great. But
those two could tear the freaking house down. But no, they're not going to do that.
But no, Ricochet's going to fight Robert Roode.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Anyway,
I'm sorry.
So the whole bit with Sami and Braun is that Braun comes out and starts chasing Sami like through the crowd into the backstage area, and he finally catches up with Sami, and then throws him in an oddly clean-looking dumpster that just happens to be right outside the door. The camera pans away, and you hear beeping from a garbage truck that's right down the little like ramp thing they have there, and the camera stays on the garbage truck for what feels like a minute and a half, giving Sami plenty of time to hop out of that, you know, out of frame.
Yeah. And
the garbage truck picks up the dumpster, dumps it in. Credit to commentary, they sold it. They're like, oh my god, Sami's dead probably. I don't know. But it was just like very much like reminiscent of Braun Strowman and Kevin Owens with the porta potty and stuff, and in Kevin's car.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know, the flipped over car was a bit of a chuckle, but after that, yeah, it was a little stupid. Basically, it was just, oh, haha, you're dirty and you smell now.
Yeah, that's all it amounted to. That was what I was gonna get to. Was on SmackDown, Sami Zayn came out, and I was like, I thought they were gonna maybe play up that he was dead or something.
You know,
maybe not dead, but like he was dumped into a garbage truck, which is known for like smashing the garbage inside of it.
It dumps all that in, and then it compacts it so it can do that even more. So it's like,
do you remember when
Braun essentially killed a man?
Do you remember when Braun was feuding with the Miz Taraj, and they threw him into a dumpster, and everyone was convinced that he was dead. He got smushed and everything, and then he showed up the next week in that same garbage truck and was alive and well. So the
same garbage truck.
Well, okay, you gonna tell me that he hopped into a different garbage truck and showed up on TV that week?
I mean, I think
neither one of those things makes sense.
Yeah, it's all dumb, yes.
Anyway,
but yes,
they played up that story like even Braun couldn't have made it out of that alive. But here, Sami Zayn is just smelling like Xavier Woods' 10th grade sock drawer.
Yeah,
which was a funny line, I thought.
Which, you know, Xavier, why you gotta have all your socks be dirty in the drawer?
Why of all people to make a sex reference? Why Xavier Woods?
Was it supposed to be a sex reference? I mean,
10th grade sock drawer.
I mean, yeah. I'm sure he did a lot of sports. Probably got nasty smelling socks.
Pretty sure that's not what it meant. At least that's not what I thought. If I'm overthinking it, then
let's keep it PG here.
Hey,
don't keep it rated R like your boy Xavier Woods.
But
anyhow,
yeah, I don't know. I didn't care much for this week. Like, they could have done one or the other. Like, keep Sami Zayn off of Raw next week, or having, I don't know what.
Yeah, that was the thing.
But for him to come out the next night and it's just always a little smelly.
Yeah.
What?
Like, oh, you need to take a shower. It's like, I took a shower. The stink doesn't come off that easily.
And then the crowd kept chanting, "Take a shower."
He should have been like, I don't know how the people of Kentucky can tell me that I stink.
He called them Kentucky Fried Hillbillies. That was a good one. Yeah.
I don't know.
Not much to say beyond that, but I don't know. I feel like that part could have been done a little better. That was like kind of my biggest thing with SmackDown this week in terms of my negatives about the show. I don't think Sami Zayn should have been on the show. Could have been. See, he's a great wrestler. He's a great promo, but it should have been someone else this week.
Yeah.
That didn't make any sense to me. Speaking of people that should or should not have been on this week.
People who were on the show but shouldn't, and then people who should have been on the show and weren't.
The Iconics and Becky Lynch. The Iconics were nowhere this week at all.
Not on Raw, not on SmackDown. Just nothing. Not even a tweet, not even a Instagram promo, nothing.
Which, I mean, in terms of the fantasy league is fine because whenever they are on, all they do is lose.
Yeah.
So I guess that's okay for you. But Becky, she came out on Raw this little bit with Lacey Evans, which didn't really do anything, and then she wasn't on SmackDown at all, and neither was Charlotte. So I don't know what the point of that was, but
they had some pretty lazy booking for the women on Raw this week. It's like, actually, Lacey Evans had a match against the Jobber. The women's Money in the Bank.
They had two Jobber matches this week.
They did?
Lucha House Party had one.
Oh, I didn't see that. I wouldn't watch that if I could anyway.
Be glad. It was really clunky.
Yeah, it was pretty stupid. But yeah, you had Lacey Evans facing a Jobber. You had the Money in the Bank competitors just standing out there for whatever reason. And then once the match is over, Becky just comes out. It was a way of basically
just getting on the show. At least it wasn't a promo, I'll say that this week. Because you've been doing double promos each week and they've been feeling a bit copy-paste.
I will say Lacey Evans' promo was pretty good.
Not bad.
It fit her character pretty well. But yeah, it was just pretty lazy. I think that was the only women's segment on Raw this week.
Well, they had the backstage bit with all the same women getting their invitations.
Exactly. That basically led to that segment.
But
like, you could have had the Iconics. You could have had the Iconics instead of the Lucha House Party. Could have had the Iconics instead of the Usos putting Uzi Hot in their Revival's trunks.
Which, credit to them, they sold that really well too. Like, for as stupid as that segment was, they go all out. So credit to them.
I guess always finding the silver lining. I guess.
Yeah.
It was a terrible segment, but they sold it well.
Yeah. I guess it's not all bad that Becky wasn't on SmackDown this week because, like I said, her promos have started to feel a bit the same each week. Now I appreciate wrestlers more when they're not on all the time.
Yes.
Like what we were talking about earlier before the brand split and people were just on both shows. Like Roman Reigns, I never really hated Roman Reigns, but I got real sick of seeing him because he was on Raw and SmackDown, multiple segments on each show. When he's on just one or the other, I like him a lot more. That goes for everyone.
Which, he's a SmackDown superstar, was on Raw more than he was on SmackDown this week.
Yeah. Well, I had to make room on SmackDown for the Raw stars.
Oh, yeah.
Because brand split. But
I mean, I don't know. The wild card rule is pretty dumb in a way of looking at the content. Mm-hmm. It treated me very well in the points this week.
It did.
I will give it that.
Yeah, which that's the next thing we're going to talk about. Those are just kind of the main points we want to go over this week. We didn't really want to break it down segment by segment.
Yeah, it's just too much.
It's starting to take a little too long to get through everything, trying to get through 5 hours of TV in a 1 hour or less podcast and then talk about your points.
But by Wednesday, I would imagine most people have either seen Raw or heard about it.
Right.
Or Raw and SmackDown. So,
because we know there's plenty of other YouTubers that address this stuff, the minute that it happens. Exactly. So you've probably already seen all that. But
we're just kind of giving our take and, doing our little thing.
Right. So before we move on to the points, Raw this week, out of 5, what would you give it?
It was good booking for a main event.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a lot of filler. I don't know. I'd give it like a 1.5.
Dang, even lower than I gave it. I gave it a 2. Just because it did feel like a bit of a panic episode. I don't know.
Yeah.
I said, the wild card rule was kind of like a double-edged sword. Like, it kind of felt like it was made up that morning, like just about everything is for Raw.
I almost believe that it really was an epiphany. Or maybe not.
Or what he considers an epiphany.
That's not the right word, but yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I felt like the good that they were trying to do didn't outweigh all the bad of the show.
No.
So.
I had a more cons than pros this week, which I'm not saying Raw was terrible, because it does take a lot, at least in my opinion, it takes a lot for it to be a 1 out of 5 show, but it also takes a lot for it to be a 5 out of 5 show. Like I was telling you before we were recording, like for it to be a 1 out of 5, it pretty much has to be like abysmal. Like no storyline would make sense. They're not really addressing anything. There would be too much recap for things that don't matter. Like just bad production, whatever. So I gave it a 2 this week because it could be worse. SmackDown, on the other hand, I gave it a 3.5 because it was a lot better than last week. It didn't feel really like filler to me. I did have my problems with it, of course.
Yeah.
Like, they did a Roman Reigns video package where they kind of chronicled, like, highlights from his career of the last 9 years. And, of course, they included the leukemia battle thing.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I think it's, incredible that he was able to fight cancer and come back on the other side and come back to wrestling in 5 months. That's all it took. But they bring it up almost every week. Congratulations to Roman. But we need to stop milking this.
See, this is like a dumb wrestler fan. I feel like I've used that word a lot today.
A mark?
No, the word dumb, but yeah. Just dumb wrestling fan thing of, I'm happy for Joe,
Joe, the human being.
Joe Anoa'i, who actually beat leukemia. I'm still not a fan of Roman Reigns, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
like,
I get what you're saying.
I understand they're kind of the same, but
I will say at least Roman hasn't been like in like main event spotlight. He's number one guy since he came back. He's kind of been taking like a backseat a little bit to like Seth Rollins and Kofi Kingston.
Yeah.
So I like him a lot more for that.
I still think he could have changed up his appearance a little bit.
Yeah. I will say this. When he came back and he was like, he was in the sleeveless shirt and then like the tennis shoes, and I don't think it was jeans. It was like track pants or something like that.
Like joggers or something.
Something like that. That was a more appealing look to me.
Yeah.
When he's in his battle vest and his like SWAT pants and stuff like that, I don't care for that.
You actually made him seem human. You know? Like I want to relate more to Joe than I do Roman.
Right.
Because Roman is, he's like Superman.
Basically.
Like he's just been like overly done over the years to where it's like I don't even like him, because like you look at him and you just think, well, yeah, what's the point?
Right.
Like, yeah, he's gonna win.
Yeah. So like I said,
this guy's gonna take 50 finishers in a row, do one Superman punch on the other guy.
Do one Superman punch, spear, and then he wins.
Spear.
So like I said, I gave SmackDown a 3.5 because, like I said, just my opinion. No, I'm not supposed to give those, but it's the internet, so I'm gonna.
But
I feel like it would take, like NXT Weekly, is consistently like probably a 4 out of 5 to me, because I feel like their production and their storytelling is like very good every week. It's also not too much TV.
Yeah.
NXT takeovers are consistently 5 stars to me. I have not seen a bad one yet.
I can't even really remember like a bad match, from an NXT takeover.
Unpopular opinion, I will say though, the NXT takeover Chicago from last year, I didn't care. I wouldn't say I didn't care much for it, but I wasn't as hyped for it as other takeovers.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was the one that was paired with Money in the Bank last year.
Yeah, I could kind of see that.
But anyway, so what would you give it out of 5, SmackDown this week?
Yes. I don't know. I'd probably go Probably go like a 3.
3.
It was a good show.
I feel like it was like the higher end of average, if that makes sense.
It was a good show. I'll give it that.
Better than last week for sure.
Much more enjoyable to view. You didn't just have people out there for the sake of having people out there.
Right.
But yeah, it's nothing really major. I mean, besides new tag champs, that's cool.
Yeah.
Kofi Kingston getting me all the points in the world.
Speaking of, on to the points. Let me arrange these right quick. So, significant changes in the points this week.
You bet.
We're just going to run through the top 15 again. Let's see. Okay. Actually, three-way tie for 13th place, 20 points each. We've got Baron Corbin, Lacey Evans, and Rowan. Rowan shot right up there with 20 points because he hadn't been on TV, and then he won championships.
And you got to give it to him. They gave him the pin, so
yeah, he got the pin.
He actually earned that.
Next, in 12th place was Kevin Owens with 21 points. Nothing too significant this week, but he's still up there. 11th place, Daniel Bryan's finally on the board with 22. Also, new tag team champ. We've said that probably 16 times this show already. D-Bry.
Once again, Planet's champion.
Right. 10th place, Kairi Sane with 23. Tied for 8th, Naomi and Seth Rollins at 24 apiece. I can't believe that I'm saying both of their names in the same sentence.
That's ridiculous.
The Universal Champion is tied for 8th place with a woman who has not had a title in months. Over a year, I would say. Right?
Yeah.
Shortly after Mania 33 is when she lost it.
Yeah, I'd say like a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah. That's sad.
Yeah.
Come on, Seth.
Like,
You're killing me.
She wasn't even in her ring gear this year. Or this week, I should say.
Yeah, she just had the 2 segments on Raw, and that was it.
Yeah.
Didn't even wrestle. Let's see. 7th place, Finn Balor with 29 points.
Finn 2 belts.
Finn 2 belts Balor. Tied for 5th. I don't know if you really consider a tie. They're part of the same team. Eric and Ivar of the Viking Raiders. They're at 30 points each.
What an experience.
Right. 4th place, AJ Styles with 32.
Yeah.
Still up there. 3rd place, Roman Reigns with 33. 2nd place, breaks my heart, Becky Lynch has been knocked off her throne.
She could only be up there for so long, man.
She wasn't on SmackDown, dude. That's the only reason. Come on now.
She was on Raw.
She didn't do crap.
It's not my problem. She's been on every show pretty much since WrestleMania.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I almost think it's good that she wasn't very featured this week.
Right. We already talked about that, though.
But yeah.
Becky, 2nd place with 54 points. 1st place, having more than doubled his points from last week.
Oh, yeah.
1st place is Kofi Kingston with 67. So, with all the factors going into play of Becky Lynch not doing crap this week,
All the Wrestle Factors.
Daniel Bryan not only coming back but winning a championship,
Yes.
and Kofi Kingston successfully retaining twice this week, Jay is now in 1st place.
Yeah? Is that what happened?
That's what happened, yeah.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's what happened.
Oh, it's not bad.
So if you remember last week, I was ahead by around 50 points. I don't remember exactly.
It was a pretty considerable lead.
Yeah, one that I expected you honestly to take a couple weeks to even catch up to. If not longer.
I figured it would at least be to like Money in the Bank, where I would.
Right.
I don't even know if take the lead, but at least make it much closer.
Right. But I'm now in 2nd place. I have 344. Jay has 358. I will say, playing devil's advocate here, it's not much of a lead. It's only 14 points compared to our 350 average.
I've
351 average, whatever.
I love and hate the wild card rule, basically.
It's working for you this week.
It worked fantastically for me this week.
Well, I will say also that like the Daniel Bryan thing like wasn't really affected by that because they needed new champs anyway, and I think they were going to put them on them anyway. It was just the Kofi thing.
Yeah,
was affected by the wild card.
That was quite a bit of it, being featured throughout Raw and then having a successful title defense 2 nights in a row.
Yep. Well, I think we're gonna cut it a little bit short this week. Kind of tired of making it go on for an hour. I'm kind of tired of listening to myself talk for an hour and then having to edit it.
Yeah, I would, I hope that we can try and kind of shorten these up a little bit more.
Yep. So we've got one more week of Raw and SmackDown before Money in the Bank. We're going to get some predictions put out there on that weekend before Money in the Bank airs. And that will affect the points as well. Curious to see how that ends up. So that's all we got time for today. So we'll be back here next week for more wrestling. Peace.
Peace.